Hey everybody, it's Mattie here with Altcoin Buzz. Hope you're doing very well today. We're going to take a look at a few different stories today, and they cover all kinds of different things. We're going to take a look at the application of blockchain technology with Passport and all kinds of cross-border travel scenarios and the potential that it has there. We're going to take a look at an article that Luke has written on altcoinbuzz.io. The real reasons for the latest market flash crash. What's behind them? And spoiler alert, it's more than just that CoinRail hack, because that was ultimately pretty insignificant in the grand scheme of things. And we're also going to look at Coinbase's new product offering. So they have a new index fund. They're competing with the likes of their rival Circle. So we're going to take a closer look at that. But we're beginning here on altcoinbuzz.io first with this article by Garrett. German financial authority taking innovation-minded approach to crypto regulation. So recent announcements from the German Financial Authority have proved that the organization realizes blockchain's innovative potential and does not want to inhibit growth with regulation. So the president, Felix Huffeld, of the Federal Financial Supervisory Authority, BaFin, is basically arguing that he's proposing this idea that, yes, we can protect against certain risks, but those are systemic risks. Those are risks at the macro level in terms of the market on the whole. We cannot be expected to regulate and micromanage investors' individual risks. And I totally agree with that. That's kind of my outlook in general in life, but I'll get to that in a moment. So, quote here, "We will not be able to protect every single investor from his fate, and that cannot be the task of state supervisions." I totally agree. Once again, the maximum is that we must act prudently or regularly if financial stability as a whole is threatened or if consumers are systematically harmed, says Huffeld. So the idea here is that, yes, there are some responsibilities on the part of BaFin, but, and I concur with him 100%. It cannot be expected that any regulatory body can intervene in the life of individual investors and tell them what not to do, tell them what they can do, and really micromanage at that point. Risk exists in life and in this world. And I don't know, maybe that's just kind of my philosophy in general. I'm really against the idea of sort of nanny state bureaucracy and in large government as far as that goes. If you have a different opinion, I'd love to hear your thoughts below, but that's just my take on this. So I definitely agree with Mr. Huffeld. Quote, "The disruptive potential of this technology," referring to blockchain, however, "goes beyond savings costs. Completely new business models could emerge that neither you nor I could think of today. And every day, many people are working to find further uses for the blockchain and to use the technology over a large area." So it looks like BaFin is positioning themselves in a pretty enthusiastic stance going forward. I'm definitely in agreement with the kind of regulatory oversight that he's proposing is going to be realistic. If you have a different take, I'd love to hear your thoughts below, but that's kind of my perspective. And I think this is the right balance. I think regulation is going to be able to lead to further credibility in the space. But I mean, that's a slippery slope. We don't want it to go too far. And it sounds like this is striking the right balance. So you can take a look here at the BaFin website. We're going to link to it below, of course. Bitcoin, blockchain, was ist Hype und was bleibt? Not sure if I got that right. You guys are going to have to let me know. Also related on Cointelegraph, German Finance Authority, crypto regulation to focus on market stability, not individuals. And of course, there's other news. German regulator pledges precise oversight of ICOs. You can read about that here on CoinDesk. Mr. Huffeld did talk about sort of in pretty rosy and pretty flowery terms the potential of blockchain. And one of those other potential applications is explored here by Licia. So passports on the blockchain. Mandar G. Chepalkar, senior technology architect at Infosys, discusses whether it is possible to use blockchain for passport identification and cross-border traveling. Maybe this is how the passport of the future looks, he asks. So you have some precedents here, and Alicia brings up the example of these British tourists who went to Turkey and had all kinds of problems with their e-visas. And the question is being asked, well, how can we mitigate these sort of problems in the future? What's the most, I guess, the most advantageous or the best way to streamline a lot of these cross-border logistics and to smooth out some of the complications that arise in those instances? So she asks, what if there was a different way, a blockchain way? Chapalkar believes that there is such a way. So he talks about the algorithm of traveling. Quote, the first authentication stage is often the check-in desk of the airline itself. The extent to which the validation of the journey can be completed can be limited, often restricted to the airline's own procedures, the skills of the check-in staff, regulations associated with both the origin and the destination, ... etc. So there are all kinds of different ways that a travel procedure can be complicated, can be compromised. There are a lot of logistics there, and there are a lot of points in that particular chain that could be compromised. And so the idea here is that blockchain could kick in, right? Because as Licia writes, it allows exchanging information using a step-by-step approach. Most of the countries have a traveling database. In the Schengen zone, which is comprised of 26 both EU and non-EU states, for example, the system is called the Schengen Information System, the SIS. And every time a person enters or leaves the zone, data is collected. So this seems like it's the kind of thing that could lend itself quite naturally to being involved with blockchain technology. It could smooth out a lot of those wrinkles that we discussed above, or at least potential wrinkles, kind of preemptively eliminate the possibility for system failure. So Mr. Chapalkar says, quote, now for argument's sake, let's imagine that our traveler is also passing through country C. Here, country C would also have the opportunity to validate our traveler's visa with the database too. 3 validations upon our traveler's final arrival, he says. So Mr. Chapalkar is not the only one talking about this. It's got potential to reduce things like human trafficking. It's got potential to really increase efficiencies. I mean, think of your travel experience, guys, when you go through customs, when you travel through an airport. It's not the most pleasant experience. There's always bottleneck. It's always a more manual process than, I guess, the ideal we could envision may be, right? If we can lend blockchain technology to this space, I think that'd be a good thing, and it could be really an efficient way to improve some of these processes. And talking about individuals in the space and organizations, you have Amadeus, which is a travel company, and they say, quote, blockchain is one of the 6 areas that the company has identified as potential disruptors of travel. It has tremendous potential to change the way people can exchange value digitally. So not a small statement on the part of Amadeus. I worked for I worked in a travel capacity in the Middle East a few years ago, guys, and I used Amadeus on a regular basis. They're a giant in that industry. So for them to be coming out and talking about this is a big deal. You can read more about this on Information Age. So we have a few articles from this website. Blockchain and Borders, the Passport of the Future. Infosys leadership facing tough questions. World's first all-you-can-fly subscription airline lands in the UK. And finally, blockchain and the transformation of the travel industry. Let us know, guys, if you're in this space, if you work in travel, maybe you work at the border, maybe you work in customs in one way or another, maybe you work in imports or exports or other industries that involved a lot of cross-border logistics or transactions. I think this is one of the things related to the best and the brightest applications potentially of blockchain. We talked about some of the other ones recently in the news. We talked about voting. We talked about democracy, how we can eliminate the threat of election hacking, right? That's been kind of a big deal in the last couple of years. So this is another one. I think travel could really look to streamline some of its procedures and some of its logistics with the use of blockchain and its adoption. Let me know what you guys think. It's obviously a big topic, but we can start off the discussion. So do be sure to sound off in the comments below. And now, relating back to our most recent market woes and this flash crash, here's an article by Luke, who writes about the real reason behind the recent market crash. So, the mainstream media did an excellent job on Sunday and Monday in letting the world know that Bitcoin has crashed again. According to most mainstream media sources, the crypto market had fallen mainly due to the hacking of the small South Korean exchange CoinRail. Yeah, emphasis on small South Korean exchange. Furthermore, most big news outlets reported that the plunge of the market was yet another signal that Bitcoin is nothing more than a bubble. What happened and why is it happening? So Luke describes here how when the media does want to chime in on crypto and on Bitcoin, his experience living in the Netherlands is that when they talk about it, it's in a negative sense. The tone is always negative. They're always trashing it. And they're not really anywhere to be found when positive news is out there and when we're in the midst of a bull run or adoption news or technology improvements are being put forward, the media is nowhere to be found, but they're all too eager to jump on the bandwagon when things are going badly, as they have been in the last couple of days, admittedly. So he brings up some examples: CNN, Bloomberg, The Guardian. I mean, these guys were just giddy. They were giddy with joy. They were shaking and trembling with happiness as they reported that $40 million loss, or the hack rather, from CoinRail. Now, Luke goes into the details of that particular hack. Again, guys, this is not a big exchange. This is an exchange with daily volume of about 2 or 3 million. It barely cracks the top 90 in terms of global exchanges, as Luke points out here. The hack itself was only for $40 million. And for $40 million to be translated into 40 billion, 50, 60, 70 billion dollars of losses in the real world in the total crypto market cap, I mean, it's been blown so far out of proportion. So the original pebble in the pond, if you will, was that hack, yes, but the ripples have just been expanding exponentially because it's been a chain reaction in a sense. And I suspect that it's been an opportunity for the bigger money movers and the bigger whales to move money around, and maybe that was their plan originally. There's also news of the CFTC requesting data from the 4 exchanges related to CME Bitcoin futures. That's also part of it, to be fair. But it's just, I mean, it's not a $40 million hack that caused this. It's a combination of a lot of things. It's the FUD out of the media, and it's big people moving money, that's for sure. So volume and market confidence, you can read a little bit more about what Luke has to say here, a bit of a recap of what's been happening recently, some of his theories, some of his subjective opinions, and the article ends on a positive note, so hope for the future. If you look at Binance, Luke brings this up. Binance is really doing a great job. Of course, we've covered the fact that they've moved to Malta recently to strategically align themselves with the regulations of that country, as opposed to where they were in Hong Kong, and they came down under some regulatory scrutiny over there in Asia. So Malta is much more realistic for them. It's providing them with a lot more freedom and liberty. And Binance, guys, is a success story even in the midst of this bear market, because since January they've multiplied their user base 4 times. So it has quadrupled in these last few months in the most suboptimal market conditions that you can imagine. So that's been a very strong point in terms of Binance. And if you don't believe in their success, go back to the Binance coin. Take a look at where that was trading in November, December, even January, and where it is today. It's not at an all-time high, but it has performed very, very well, and it's retained a lot of its value. So people are still interested in the space, and I think the influx of new users into Binance is a leading indicator and an indication of the public's collective enthusiasm, at least in the future, for crypto and for Bitcoin. So there's also news, of course, positive news of institutional investors, the Goldman Sachs of the world, the NASDAQs. Yes, all of that exists. The sort of uncertainty, the big question mark, is the SEC and whether or not they're going to come down on certain projects, certain companies. Ethereum is still up in the air, yes, as is Ripple. But they just came out recently and they talked about how, on the one hand, pretty much ICOs, in their opinion, are going to be securities, so initial coin offerings. But last week, the SEC did state that Bitcoin is not a security. So there is positive news, and I like the fact that Luke ends on a positive note. So do be sure to leave him a comment there. Do be sure to sound off with your own opinions in the comments below. And we're going to link to this. SEC chair clarifies agency's position on security and ICOs. That's on News BTC. And CNN Money, thanks so much for the FUD. Billions in cryptocurrency wealth wiped out after hack. I hold them personally responsible. CNN, Bloomberg, like Luke said, a lot of these big outlets are just, oh my God, they're just frothing with joy at the prospect of putting out some more FUD out there into the world. Let's see how they come back and talk about the good news when the bull run imminently hits. And this is just a little comparison, guys. I pulled out these stats from the FBI, bank robbery news. So where's the media covering all of these bank heists? June 13th, June 12th, June 12th, June 11th, June 11th, June 11th, June 7th, June 6th, June 6th, June 6th. And you go back all the way. It's tracking all kinds of different criminal activity and bank heists, bank robberies going back for months. In the FBI database here. And it's just a little thought experiment. It's a bit of a joke, if anything. I'm just kind of being silly. But it goes to suggest that, yes, there are hacks in the world. It's unfortunate when it happens, but it's funny to see how the rest of the world doesn't have these like like seismic earthquakes in the financial markets, in traditional currency markets when negative news is abundantly available. So, it's just funny to see that. It's not headline front page news when you have these bank robberies, even though they're well documented, even though they exist. And yet in the crypto world, I guess because we're more skittish, we're less mature, that is a concern. So just something to look at. It's a funny little comparison, but a cool little thought experiment, I thought. Finally, in the news here, article by Chris, will Coinbase's index fund attract new institutional money? So Coinbase releases Coinbase Index Fund, which allows U.S. accredited investors the opportunity to purchase all of the available assets on the platform based on the current weighted market capitalization. Future assets will be rebalanced into this fund at time of listing. So this is a fund for the big boys. You got to be a U.S. accredited investor, meaning that the minimum to put in is $250,000, and you can put in as much as $20 million. So that's not exactly money for the everyday investor, for the herd. But if you're somebody that is looking to make a more conservative acquisition and dip your toes into the crypto world in an institutional capacity, could be a good way to do that. And of course, diversification of any portfolio is really like step one in terms of prudent financial advice. So this would put more weight on Bitcoin, followed by Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, and Litecoin, because it's weighted, of course, by market capitalization. And this seems to be a direct response to the rival company Circle, which has recently put out a similar product. So, of course, we just covered the news that Coinbase is introducing Ethereum Classic, ETC, to their platform, and that's going to be listed in the next couple of months, maybe the next several months. We're not too sure. And when that does come out, they're going to have to rejig their calibration. They're going to have to rebalance the fund. But this looks to be an interesting project for those more serious, those more institutional investors, actually, that may be less serious or less focused in terms of their crypto investments, because it's a way to dip their toes into the water and test things out, right? You can read more about that here. Coinbase Index Fund is open for investment. Do be sure to take a look at the Coinbase account on Twitter. They're talking about that. Asset management, Coinbase Index Fund is open for investment, the Coinbase blog. And of course, you're going to be able to look back to our most recent article on this topic relating to Circle. So that was written by Chris on May 24th. Circle Invest makes trading easy. So do be sure to take a look at that if you want to brush up on the activity that Circle has been doing. And look, guys, to end off, not financial advice, but just a reminder here by Blockchain J on our Altcoin Buzz Instagram account that if you still believe in these projects, if you're still in it for the long run, then again, not financial advice, asterisk, right? But you got to buy low and you got to sell high. That's the name of the game. And if you are still keen on some of these big projects, some of the ones that are proven with ongoing track records, with good reputations, prices are pretty good now. Prices are at a bargain, and you'd have to go back several months to remember a time when you had some of these similar deals available. So I'm not telling you guys what to do. I'm not telling you what to look into or what to invest into, but yeah, just something to keep in mind, right? The technology has not changed. If anything, it has improved. So just something to keep in mind. Make sure you're following us, guys, on Altcoin Buzz News on Twitter for the latest and the greatest updates. If you like this video, do be sure to leave it a thumbs up. Make sure you click the bell and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we have new content every day, and that way you're going to be alerted to it. So with that, guys, if you do choose to invest, I'm not telling you to, but if you do choose to invest, I wish you happy investing. We'll see you again soon with new content. Take care.